a werewolf shifter romance written by Catherine Stewart. Prologue. Sunlight drizzles through the emerald canopy, painting shifting patterns on a hidden meadow carpeted with wildflowers. Liam laughs, his head thrown back as Seraphina playfully weaves a crown of daisies into his dark hair. She holds a half-carved wooden bird in her other hand, a small, fond smile gracing her lips. Seraphina. Almost as wild as you, my alpha. Liam reaches up, his fingers brushing hers. Their connection is palpable, a silent understanding passing between them. Kaelen watches them from the edge of the meadow, his expression unreadable. Close up on an ancient, leather-bound book, its pages filled with intricate symbols of Lunar lineage. Seraphina's finger traces one symbol, a protective knot. Kaelen's hand slams down on the open page, his fingers obscuring the symbol, his jaw tight. A lone wolf, silhouetted against a stormy, blood-red moon, howls in anguish. A darker wolf observes Liam from a distance, its eyes gleaming with cold ambition. Close up on the intricately carved wooden bird, now clutched tightly in Liam's bloodied hand. The moonlight catches a fresh crack running through the delicate wood. His breath hitches, a raw sound escaping his throat.
The scent of lavender and wild honey, usually a balm that soothed the beast within, now clung to the torn fabric in his hand like a ghost's embrace, a constant, brutal reminder. They had taken her, his Luna, Seraphina, and the silence where her laughter used to bloom echoed louder than any battle cry. But it wasn't just the silence that clawed at Liam. It was the gnawing suspicion, a seed of ice planted deep in his heart the moment he saw the single, dark feather lying beside her discarded gown. A feather that didn't belong to their lands. A feather that whispered of treachery far closer than any enemy border. Liam, alpha of the Crescent Moon Pack, moved through his days with a weight that had nothing to do with his alpha responsibilities. He settled a dispute between two young wolves over hunting grounds, his voice firm yet fair, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging inside him. A shared glance with Seraphina, a silent language of love and understanding, usually punctuated such moments. But Seraphina wasn't there. The memory of her hand in his, the easy comfort of her presence, was a phantom limb, aching with its absence. He's being uncharacteristically patient. Alara, a seasoned warrior and one of Seraphina's closest friends, murmured, her gaze sharp as she watched Liam. He misses her. Bram, Liam's most trusted tracker, replied, his voice low. They are two halves of one soul, Alara. This tears at him. Later, Liam found himself in Seraphina's small sanctuary, a sun-drenched corner of their den, filled with the earthy scent of herbs and the delicate fragrance of her favorite wildflowers. He picked up a smooth, gray stone she'd always carried, its coolness a poor substitute for the warmth of her hand. She always had a way of finding peace in the simplest things, he thought, the quiet of the sanctuary amplifying the hollowness within him. Kaelen, his beta, entered, his expression carefully neutral. Alpha, the border patrols have returned. No sign. Liam turned, the stone clutched in his fist, and the rogue's scent fades quickly beyond the western ridge, as if they vanished into thin air. Kaelen's gaze flickered away, a barely perceptible hesitation in his demeanor. Something isn't right, Liam thought, a prickle of unease crawling up his spine. It wasn't just Seraphina's absence. It was the way Kaelen avoided his eyes, the subtle shift in the pack's atmosphere, a disquiet he couldn't quite place. That night, Liam found himself staring at the intricately carved wooden bird, the one he'd found clutched in Seraphina's abandoned nightgown. He remembered Seraphina carving it, her brow furrowed in concentration, a soft smile playing on her lips. It's a wren, Liam, for joy and resilience. Something to always remind us to find the light, even in the darkest of times. His fingers traced the delicate wings. Joy felt like a distant memory now, and resilience a battle he wasn't sure he could win alone. He turned the bird over in his hand, noticing a faint, almost invisible scratch on its underside. It wasn't random. It was a symbol, one only he and Seraphina knew. A knot, a protective binding. She left me a message, Liam realized, a flicker of hope igniting in the darkness. But why this symbol? What is she trying to tell me? The knot symbol led him to an old, forgotten map hidden beneath their sleeping platform, a map detailing the ancient territories of their ancestors. One location was circled, a place marked with the same protective knot, the Whispering Caves, a place rumored to hold both great power and great danger, a place Kaelen had always cautioned him to avoid. The Whispering Caves? Bram's brow furrowed when Liam showed him the map. Alpha, that place, the old tales say it's cursed. Seraphina knew the tales, Liam countered, his gaze fixed on the circled location. She wouldn't lead me there without a reason. But why wouldn't she just leave a scent trail? Alara asked, her voice laced with worry. Liam's gaze drifted to the dark feather he'd found. Because I think she knew someone within our own borders, was involved. The unspoken name hung heavy in the air. Kaelen. The thought was a venomous serpent, striking at the very foundation of his trust. As they prepared to leave, Liam found Kaelen blocking their path, his usual easygoing demeanor replaced by a subtle tension. Alpha, where are you going? Scouting the western borders. There were reports of increased rogue activity. Liam's lie felt like ash in his mouth. Kaelen's eyes narrowed, a flicker of something unreadable in their depths. I'll come with you then. 2 alphas are better than 1. Liam met his gaze, the weight of his suspicion a tangible thing between them. No, Kaelen, I need you here, to watch over the pack. If the rogues are bold enough to cross our borders, they might try something while I'm gone. Kaelen hesitated, his jaw tight. As you command, Alpha. But the resentment in his eyes was a sharp, undeniable blade. He knows something, Liam thought, the certainty chilling him to the bone. And whatever it is, it's connected to Seraphina's disappearance. The journey to the Whispering Caves now felt less like a rescue mission and more like a descent into a treacherous web of secrets and lies, where the greatest danger might not lie in the shadows of the caves, but in the heart of his own pack. The protective knot Seraphina had marked now felt less like a beacon of hope and more like a desperate warning. What awaited him in the Whispering Caves? And what role did his own beta play in the nightmare that had stolen his Luna? The answers, he knew, would be stained with betrayal.
The weight of Liam's absence pressed on Seraphina like the very stones of her makeshift prison. The rough-hewn walls offered no comfort, only the chilling reminder of her captivity. But even in the suffocating darkness, a tiny spark of defiance flickered. Liam would find her. She had to believe that. The memory of his touch, the fierce possessiveness in his gaze, the unbreakable bond that connected their very souls, these were the anchors that kept her from being swallowed whole by despair. Yet, a new, unsettling awareness was beginning to bloom in the cold soil of her fear, a dawning comprehension of the intricate web of deceit that had led her here. The ritualistic marking, the chillingly familiar scent that clung to her captors, it whispered of a betrayal far deeper and more personal than she could have ever imagined. The scent of pine and damp earth clung to Liam as he finally reached the edge of their secret meadow, the place where their souls had first truly recognized one another. He remembered the day as if it were yesterday, the unexpected encounter during a tense border patrol. She had been fierce, her eyes blazing with a protective fire for her pack, even as a wary curiosity flickered within their depths. "You fight like a wildcat, Luna," he had growled, a grudging admiration in his voice. "And you, Alpha, charge in like a bull," she had retorted, her chin tilted defiantly. Perhaps a bit more strategy next time? Even in their initial clash, a strange pull had connected them, an undeniable awareness that transcended the immediate conflict. He had seen past her sharp edges, recognizing the unwavering loyalty and fierce intelligence that lay beneath. And she had glimpsed the raw power and inherent fairness that defined him, the heart of a true alpha beating beneath his formidable exterior. Their bond had deepened slowly, like the gradual unfurling of a tightly closed bloom. Shared laughter under starry skies, whispered secrets in the quiet of the woods, the comfortable silences that spoke volumes. Their wolves, too, had recognized the ancient connection, circling each other with a gentle curiosity before settling side by side, a mirror of the burgeoning affection between their human halves. He had been so patient, Seraphina thought now, tracing the rough surface of the cave wall. So understanding of her initial hesitations, the lingering shadows of a past she rarely spoke of. He had seen her, truly seen her, in a way no one ever had. Kaelen had been there then, too, a constant presence at Liam's side. He had offered congratulations, a seemingly genuine smile on his face as Liam and Seraphina's bond solidified. "You've found your balance, Alpha," Kaelen had said, his tone sincere. "She's good for you. Strong." His words echoed in Seraphina's memory now, tainted with a bitter irony. Had it all been a carefully constructed facade? Had the envy been simmering beneath the surface all along? Liam cherished a small, intricately woven bracelet she had given him during their early courtship, a token of her affection and her connection to the natural world. She remembered the care she had put into each knot, each carefully chosen bead. "It's made of river stones and willow bark, Liam," she had explained, her fingers tracing the delicate weave. "To remind you of the strength of the earth and the resilience of the willow. And this one, this is for our bond. Unbreakable." The thought of that unbreakable bond now felt fragile, stretched thin by the agonizing separation and the growing suspicion of betrayal. Had she been so blind? Had she missed the subtle signs, the fleeting glances, the undertones in Kaelen's voice? The weight of her captivity was a physical ache, but the potential betrayal, that was a wound that cut far deeper. Liam, his unwavering trust, his fierce love, how would he bear this? The thought of his pain twisted within her, a sharp counterpoint to her own fear. She had to be strong. For him. She had to leave him a trail, a breadcrumb in the suffocating darkness, a way for him to find her, even if the path was fraught with danger. The memory of their first meeting, the unexpected spark that had ignited between them, fueled her resolve. Their story wasn't over. Not yet. But the comfortable rhythm of their life had been shattered, replaced by a desperate race against time, against an enemy who wore the face of trust. And as the chilling implications of the ritualistic marking settled in her mind, a terrifying realization dawned: this wasn't just about power. It was about ownership. And the mark felt sickeningly familiar. Had she seen it before? Somewhere in the shadows of her past? The question hung heavy in the air, a dark omen in the silence of her prison. What was Kaelen truly after? And what role did her own forgotten history play in his treacherous game? The answers, she knew, lay shrouded in a darkness she had yet to fully comprehend. But one thing was certain: the wolf she knew as her mate would tear down worlds to find her. And the wolf who had betrayed him would face a fury unlike any he had ever known. The thought, though terrifying, offered a sliver of grim hope in the suffocating blackness. The air in the small chamber grew heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something else, something metallic and faintly unsettling. Seraphina's fingers, tracing the cold stone of the wall, stilled. It was a scent she recognized, a scent that had haunted the edges of her awareness since her capture, but one she hadn't been able to place. Until now. It was the scent of the Shadowclaw rogues. But why? What connection did Kaelen have with them? The question was a knot tightening in her stomach, a cold dread seeping into her bones. Kaelen, Liam's trusted beta, involved with a brutal rogue pack? It defied logic, yet the evidence, the dark feather, the unfamiliar scent, the ritualistic marking, it all pointed to a horrifying truth. She had to find a way to communicate this to Liam, to warn him that the danger wasn't just outside their pack, but festering within its very heart. Her gaze fell upon a loose stone in the wall, dislodged slightly. An idea, desperate but potentially vital, began to form in her mind. It was a long shot, a whisper in the dark, but it was all she had. The image of Liam's face, his brow furrowed with worry, his eyes filled with a love that burned brighter than any star, spurred her on. She wouldn't let him walk into a trap. She would fight, with every fiber of her being, to guide him through the darkness, even if it meant risking everything. The silence of her prison was broken only by the frantic beating of her own heart, a drumbeat of fear and fierce determination. Liam was coming. She had to believe it. And when he did, she would be ready. Ready to reveal the viper in their midst. Ready to fight for their love, for their pack, for their future. The weight of that responsibility settled upon her, heavy but not crushing. It was a purpose, a beacon in the overwhelming despair. She was Seraphina, Luna of the Crescent Moon Pack, and she would not break. Not now. Not ever.
Liam's jaw tightened, the muscle in his cheek twitching with a barely suppressed fury. The protective knot. The whispering caves. Seraphina's message, etched with such desperate care, resonated with a chilling certainty. She wasn't just lost. She was deliberately leading him somewhere, away from the obvious trails, away from Kaelen's watchful eyes. And the mention of the Shadowclaw scent, it was a discordant note, a jarringly wrong element in the symphony of his fear. What possible connection could Kaelen, his own beta, have with a brutal rogue pack known for their ruthlessness? The question was a viper coiling in his gut, poisoning the already raw wound of Seraphina's absence. He glanced at Bram and Alara, their faces etched with a mixture of concern and grim determination. They trusted him, their alpha. But could he trust his own instincts, clouded as they were by fear and a dawning sense of betrayal? The air in the whispering caves hung heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and something ancient, something other. Liam moved cautiously, Bram and Alara flanking him, their senses heightened. The silence here was different, not the empty silence of Seraphina's absence, but a silence that hummed with a hidden energy, a watchful stillness that prickled his skin. Anything, Liam murmured, his voice echoing strangely in the cavernous space. Bram sniffed the ground, his brow furrowed. Faint, very faint. Seraphina was here, but the rogue's scent, it's stronger. Alara ran a hand along a rough-hewn wall, her fingers tracing a series of strange symbols carved into the stone. These markings, they're old. Older than our pack's history. Seraphina would have found these fascinating, wouldn't she? Her mind always reaching for the forgotten lore. She would have, Liam agreed, his gaze sweeping the cavern, picturing Seraphina's intense focus, the way her eyes would light up with discovery. A pang of longing shot through him. A sudden glint of metal caught his eye. He bent down, picking up a small, intricately carved silver locket. It was Seraphina's. He opened it, his breath catching in his throat. Inside, nestled against a dried sprig of lavender, was a tiny, crudely drawn circle. A pawn. The knot, and now this, Liam murmured, his mind racing, piecing together the fragments of Seraphina's desperate message. It's a code. She's trying to tell me something vital. A pawn. Bram frowned, his sharp gaze fixed on the small drawing. What tactical meaning could that hold in a situation like this? In the old strategy games our ancestors played, the pawn is often the first line of defense, sometimes sacrificed to protect the more valuable pieces. Liam explained, a cold dread washing over him, the weight of Seraphina's potential fate settling heavily on his shoulders. Is she saying she's a sacrifice? A distraction? But to whom? Alara asked, her voice laced with fear, her hand instinctively reaching for the knife at her hip. Who would want Seraphina as a pawn? Further into the caves, navigating the twisting passages, they found more signs. A torn piece of Seraphina's nightgown, the delicate lace snagged on a sharp outcropping of rock, a faint impression in the damp earth, almost like a mold of her form, where she might have rested, however briefly. But the rogue's scent was always there, a constant, unwelcome companion, a chilling reminder of the brutal presence that shadowed Seraphina's every move. They were here together, Bram confirmed, his expression grim, his senses painting a vivid picture of Seraphina's forced journey. But there's something else. Another scent. Fainter, but familiar. It's like a shadow clinging to the stronger rogue's scent. He sniffed again, his eyes widening slightly, a dawning realization in their depths. Kaelen. Liam's blood ran cold, the betrayal of physical blow. Kaelen's scent, here, in the Whispering Caves, alongside the rogues and Seraphina's trail, it was a confirmation of his deepest fears, a treachery that sliced through the years of shared history, the bond of brotherhood they had forged. Are you absolutely certain? Liam's voice was a low growl, the sound resonating with a dangerous edge in the confined space. Positive, Alpha. It's unmistakable. The unique musk of his shift, the subtle undertones of the herbs he favors, it's him. Bram's gaze was steady, unwavering, the certainty in his voice leaving no room for doubt. But why? Alara whispered, her voice filled with disbelief, her mind struggling to reconcile the loyal beta she knew with this horrifying revelation. Kaelen, he's been by your side since we were pups. We've bled together, fought together. I don't know the why yet, Alara, Liam admitted, the weight of Kaelen's treachery pressing down on him, suffocating his hope. But Seraphina knew. The dark feather, the coded messages she was trying to warn me, to open my eyes to the darkness I refused to see. Deeper within the labyrinthine caves, the air grew stagnant, the silence punctuated by the drip, drip, drip of water echoing through the chambers. They discovered a larger cavern, the air thick with the lingering scent of the rogues and blood, a metallic tang that made Liam's stomach clench. On the floor, etched in what looked like dried blood, was the same ritualistic marking they had found near Seraphina's abandoned gown, a crude symbol of twisted power. What in the name of the moon goddess is this? Alara's voice was barely a whisper, her face pale in the dim light filtering from a crack in the ceiling. It's a claiming mark, Bram explained, his tone grim, his knowledge of rogue traditions painting a horrifying picture. An old, brutal rogue tradition. It signifies absolute ownership. They believe it binds the marked to their will. Liam's fist clenched, the image of that mark on Seraphina's delicate skin searing his mind, a brand of violation. The thought of her being claimed, owned, defiled by those brutal savages, under Kaelen's orchestration, it ignited a primal rage within him, a fury so potent it threatened to shatter the very control he fought so hard to maintain. Kaelen, Liam growled, the name of venomous curse on his lips, a promise of retribution. He didn't just lead them to her. He orchestrated this. He delivered her into their hands. But the power dynamic, it doesn't make sense, Alpha, Alara argued, her mind grappling with the inconsistencies. Kaelen is beta. The rogues, they answer to no one. Liam shook his head, his mind reeling, the pieces of the puzzle slowly clicking into place, forming a horrifying image. Unless Kaelen has something they want. Something Seraphina possesses. As they finally emerged from the oppressive darkness of the caves, following the now clearer trail of the rogues, a sound pierced the stillness of the forest, a faint, almost mournful howl, carried on the cool night air. It was Seraphina. She's alive, Liam breathed, a fragile tendril of hope snaking through the icy grip of his anger and fear. She's close. They haven't broken her spirit. But the howl, it sounded weak, Alpha, Bram noted, his brow furrowed with deep concern, his senses picking up the subtle nuances of pain and exhaustion in her cry. They've heard her, Liam said, the rage returning, stronger now, a burning inferno fueled by the sound of her pain, the injustice of her captivity. Kaelen will answer for this. Every last one of them will answer for this betrayal. He looked at Bram and Alara, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination that promised swift and brutal justice. We're not just tracking rogues anymore. We're hunting a traitor who wears the face of our own. and we're bringing Seraphina home, no matter the cost. The path ahead was fraught with peril, the betrayal a bitter poison in his veins. But the sound of Seraphina's howl, however faint, was a beacon in the darkness, a sacred promise echoing in his soul that he would not rest until she was safe in his arms again. The protective knot she had etched, the pawn she had drawn, they were not just clues. They were a testament to her extraordinary courage, her unwavering resilience, and her fierce, unshakable faith in him. And he would not, could not, fail her. He would unravel Kaelen's treacherous web of lies. He would face the shadows that held her captive, and he would bring his Luna back into the light, even if it meant tearing their world apart. The hunt had begun, and it would end with either.
The rough stone bit into Seraphina's palm as she tightened her grip, the faint tremor in the cavern floor a chilling echo of the fear that coiled in her stomach. Liam was coming. She felt it in the frantic thrum of her own heart, a desperate counterpoint to the oppressive silence of her prison. But the ritualistic marking on her skin burned with a sickening heat, a constant reminder of the brutal claim made upon her. And the Shadowclaw scent, it was no longer a distant undercurrent but a suffocating presence, mingling with another, equally disturbing aroma, a familiar musk that sent a shiver of icy dread down her spine. Kaelen. The realization was a poisoned arrow, lodging deep within her already wounded spirit. The man Liam trusted, the one she had always believed to be his steadfast brother-in-arms, he was the architect of this nightmare. But why? What twisted motive lay beneath his betrayal? The answer, she knew, was tangled with the ancient Luna lineage that flowed in her veins, a heritage she had always kept hidden, even from Liam. A secret now exposed, weaponized by the very wolf she had unknowingly welcomed into their lives. The memory of the ambush was a jagged shard of ice in Seraphina's mind. One moment, she had been tracking a faint sign, a broken twig she had deliberately left as a marker for Liam, her heart pounding with a fragile hope. The next, the air had exploded with the guttural snarls of the Shadowclaw rogues, their eyes burning with a savage hunger. "The Luna is ours now," their alpha had snarled, his voice a rough rasp, his gaze possessive as it raked over her. By the mark. Their movements had been swift, brutal. Before she could shift, before she could even fully register the danger, rough hands had seized her, the metallic tang of their scent filling her nostrils, a primal wave of fear washing over her. "Liam," she had choked out, her voice barely a whisper against the onslaught. She had fought, tooth and nail, the wildcat spirit Liam had once teased her about rising to the surface, a desperate flurry of claws and teeth against their superior numbers. But they were too many, their strength fueled by a cruel determination and the intoxicating scent of her fear. And then she had seen him. Kaelen. Standing in the shadows at the edge of the clearing, his face impassive, his eyes devoid of the warmth she had always associated with him, a cold calculation hardening his features. "Kaelen," she had cried out, her voice laced with disbelief and a dawning horror. "What are you doing? Help me!" He hadn't answered, his silence more damning than any accusation. It was in that moment, seeing his complicity, the cold calculation in his gaze as he watched her struggle, that the true depth of his betrayal had crashed down upon her, shattering the foundations of her trust, leaving her feeling utterly exposed and alone. They had dragged her through the rough terrain, the ritualistic mark on her arm burning like a brand, a constant, searing reminder of her captivity. The journey had been a blur of fear and exhaustion, the guttural whispers of the rogues, their crude taunts and possessive gazes, a constant assault on her spirit, each mile taking her further away from Liam, further into the clutches of his betrayer. "The beta has good taste," one of the rogues had sneered, his grip tightening on her arm. "Powerful blood runs in this one. The alpha will reward us handsomely." She had tried to glean information, to understand their motives, Kaelen's motives, her mind racing to find some logical explanation for this nightmare. But the rogues were brutal and tight-lipped, their loyalty clearly lying with Kaelen, a fear in their eyes when his name was mentioned that spoke of a power dynamic she didn't yet understand. "Why are you doing this, Kaelen?" she had finally managed to ask, her voice raw with pain and disbelief when he had briefly appeared at their camp. "Liam trusted you. We both did. What could they possibly offer you that would make you do this?" His only response had been a chillingly indifferent shrug, a casual dismissal that spoke volumes about the depth of his deception, the callous disregard for the bond they had all shared. Now, trapped in this cold, damp chamber, the weight of her capture was a suffocating blanket, pressing down on her with the chilling finality of a grave. But beneath the fear, a steely resolve began to harden, fueled by the unwavering image of Liam's love. She wouldn't be a pawn in Kaelen's twisted game. She wouldn't let his betrayal break her spirit. Liam was coming. And when he did, he would find her unbroken, her love for him a burning shield against the darkness. Her fingers found the loose stone again, the small gap she had painstakingly widened a testament to her determination, a tiny pinprick of hope in the overwhelming despair. The scrap of fabric, etched with the protective knot and the symbol of the pawn, was hidden within the small crevice, a silent plea, a coded warning carried on the fragile hope that he would understand its meaning. The metallic scent intensified, and a low growl echoed from the passage outside her chamber, closer now, more menacing. They were back. Fear tightened its icy grip, a vice around her chest, but beneath it, a flicker of defiance remained, a spark of the wildcat Liam loved. She was Seraphina, Luna of the Crescent Moon Pack. And she would not yield. Not without a fight that would echo through these very stones. The image of Liam's fierce, protective gaze filled her mind, a burning promise that she would see him again, feel his touch, hear his voice. Their love was a force stronger than any betrayal, a bond that even Kaelen's treachery could not sever. And it was that love that would guide Liam through the darkness, and ultimately, bring him to her side. The waiting was agony, each moment stretching into an eternity, each echoing footstep outside her chamber a fresh wave of dread. But within that agonizing wait, a quiet strength was building, a fierce determination to survive, not just for herself, but for Liam, for the future they had dreamed of, a future Kaelen sought to steal. The whispers of the rogues grew closer, their heavy footsteps echoing in the confined space, their rough voices a guttural murmur just beyond the heavy wooden door. Her heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat against the silence, a desperate plea carried on the rhythm of her pulse. "Liam, hurry. Please hurry." The darkness was closing in, but the flame of her love still burned bright, a defiant beacon in the encroaching night. She would endure. She had to. For him. For them. The rough stone dug into her back as she leaned against the wall, every nerve ending screaming with a mixture of fear and anticipation, the air thick with the stench of her captors. Any moment now, any moment could bring either Liam's arrival, a rush of hope and fierce relief, or something far more sinister, the chilling realization that she was truly alone. The thought of Kaelen, his face twisted with ambition and a cruel satisfaction, sent a fresh wave of nausea through her, a bitter taste of betrayal rising in her throat. What did he truly want? Power over Liam's pack? Control over her? Or something even more twisted, something that preyed on the deepest fears she had always kept locked away, buried beneath layers of love and trust? The ancient Lunar lineage, it was the key, she knew it in the marrow of her bones. But what specific aspect of it? The ability to heal, a power she had often used for her pack? The deep connection to the earth, a source of her quiet strength? Or something darker, something whispered in hushed tones in the old legends, something she herself didn't fully understand, a power that could be weaponized? The weight of her heritage, once a source of quiet pride and a connection to her ancestors, now felt like a dangerous burden, a target painted on her very soul. Liam had never cared about her lineage, only about her, about the woman she was, the Luna she had become by his side, his equal in heart and spirit. It was that pure, unwavering love that gave her strength now, a fragile lifeline in the suffocating darkness, a promise that she was not forgotten. The metallic scent was overpowering now, clinging to the air like a shroud, mingling with the stench of unwashed bodies and something else, something primal and possessive, a territorial marking that made her skin crawl. A growl, low and menacing, vibrated through the stone walls, closer than ever. They were close. Too close. Her breath hitched, a silent sob caught in her throat, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Liam, where are you? The silence stretched, taut and heavy, broken only by the ragged rhythm of her own breathing and the ominous shuffling just outside the door. Then, a voice, cold and familiar, cut through the stillness, a chillingly casual tone that belied the venom beneath. Well, Luna," Kaelen's voice echoed from beyond the door, laced with a cruel amusement that sent a shiver of icy dread down her spine. "Still clinging to hope? Such a tenacious little thing, aren't you?" The sound of his voice was a physical blow, a fresh wave of despair washing over her, the casual cruelty a stark contrast to the warmth she had once known. Betrayal had a sound, she realized. It was cold.
The sound of Kaelen's voice, cold and laced with a cruel amusement that echoed even through the thick wooden door, was like a physical blow to Liam. It confirmed his darkest fears, solidifying the bitter reality of the betrayal. Seraphina was alive, but in Kaelen's clutches. The rage that had been simmering beneath the surface of his grief now threatened to erupt, a primal fury demanding release. He could hear the taunting tone, the casual cruelty that spoke volumes about Kaelen's descent into darkness. The image of Seraphina, trapped and vulnerable, ignited a firestorm within him. He would tear down stone walls. He would battle every shadow. He would unleash the full force of his alpha power to reach her. The hunt was no longer just about rescue. It was about vengeance, a reckoning for the broken trust and the stolen love. Liam's knuckles were white as he gripped Bram's arm, his senses straining to catch any sound from beyond the heavy door. Kaelen's voice, though muffled, was unmistakable. "Did you hear that?" Liam growled, his voice tight, with barely controlled fury. Bram nodded grimly, his own anger palpable. "He's taunting her." Alara's eyes were filled with a fierce determination. "We need to breach this. Now." Liam took a deep breath, forcing down the immediate urge to shift and tear through the barrier. He needed a plan, a strategy. Rushing in blindly could endanger Seraphina further. "Bram, can you sense her? Her emotional state?" Liam asked, his voice a low rumble. Bram closed his eyes, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Fear. Yes, a strong current of fear. But beneath it, there's a flicker of something else. Defiance. And a strange calmness." That flicker of calmness amidst the terror gave Liam a sliver of hope, a testament to Seraphina's strength. But Kaelen's presence, it was a poisonous element, complicating everything. "He's close," Liam murmured, his senses telling him Kaelen was just beyond that door. "He's not just holding her, he's reveling in it." A sudden memory flashed through Liam's mind. A seemingly innocuous conversation with Kaelen weeks ago, a casual inquiry about ancient Luna lineages, their potential powers, their vulnerabilities. At the time, Liam had dismissed it as idle curiosity. Now, the pieces clicked into place with chilling clarity. Why the sudden interest in old Luna tales, Kaelen? Just fascinating history, Alpha. The strength some of those bloodlines held, it's almost unbelievable. Unbelievable, until now. Kaelen wasn't just betraying him. He was after something specific, something tied to Seraphina's heritage. He wants her power, Liam realized, the revelation hitting him like a physical blow. That's why the rogues, they're his pawns in this. Her power. Alara frowned, confusion etched on her face. What power? Liam hesitated. Seraphina had always been private about her lineage, a secret she guarded closely. But now, Her life was at stake. Her bloodline, it's ancient, strong. There are abilities, Liam explained, his voice low, choosing his words carefully. Kaelen knows. That's why he orchestrated this. The weight of this new revelation settled heavily upon them, adding another layer of complexity to their desperate rescue mission. They weren't just fighting to save Seraphina from brutal rogues. They were up against Kaelen's ambition, his lust for a power that wasn't his to take. "We need to get to her before he can use her," Liam said, his voice filled with urgency. "Bram, is there another way in? A back passage? Anything?" Bram closed his eyes again, his senses reaching out, mapping the structure beyond the door. "There's a series of tunnels. They wind beneath the main chamber. It's risky, but it might lead us closer." "Risk is our only option," Liam stated, his gaze unwavering. "Alara, you're with me. Bram, you lead the way through the tunnels." As they moved to find the hidden entrance to the tunnels, a blood-curdling scream ripped through the heavy wooden door. Seraphina's scream, filled with pure, unadulterated terror. Liam froze, his heart twisting in his chest. "No, we have to hurry, Alpha," Alara urged, her hand on his arm, her voice trembling. "Every second counts." The sound of Seraphina's pain spurred Liam into action, the raw agony in her voice overriding his need for caution. He would not let Kaelen break her. He would not let them take her power. He would reach her, no matter the cost. The tunnels were dark and claustrophobic, the air thick with the stench of damp earth, and something else, something acrid and magical. It was Kaelen, Liam realized, his scent laced with a dark energy. They were close. Too close. The tunnels opened into a small, hidden alcove behind the main chamber. Through a narrow crack in the stone wall, they could see Seraphina. She was bound, the ritualistic mark on her arm glowing with an eerie light. Kaelen stood before her, chanting in a low, guttural tongue, a dark energy swirling around him. The air crackled with power. "He's starting the ritual," Bram whispered, his voice filled with dread. Liam's blood ran cold. They were too late. Or were they? Seraphina's eyes, though filled with fear, flickered towards the crack in the wall, a spark of recognition, a silent plea. And then, Liam saw it, a subtle tremor in her bound hand, a prearranged signal, a tiny flicker of defiance in the face of overwhelming terror. She wasn't entirely helpless. She had a plan. And Liam knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within his soul, that whatever that plan was, he would be right there beside her. The betrayal had cut deep, but the bond between him and Seraphina was stronger than any treachery. It was time for the reckoning. It was time to unleash the storm. The sight of Seraphina bound, the ritualistic mark on her arm glowing with an eerie light, and Kaelen's dark chanting sent a primal wave of fury crashing through Liam. He gripped the rough stone of the alcove wall, his knuckles white, the beast within him straining to break free. Bram's whispered words about the ritual starting were a chilling confirmation of their desperate situation. But then, he saw it. That infinitesimal tremor in Seraphina's bound hand, the almost imperceptible flicker in her eyes that met his through the crack in the wall. A silent message. Defiance. Hope. She wasn't broken. Not yet. And that tiny spark ignited a fierce resolve within Liam, a certainty that they weren't too late. Whatever Kaelen's twisted plan, whatever power he sought to steal, Seraphina was fighting back, even in her captivity. And he would be there, his strength bolstering hers, their bond an unbreakable shield against the encroaching darkness. "He's vulnerable while he's chanting," Liam growled, his voice low but filled with a deadly resolve. "We need to strike now. Bram, can you create a diversion? Something to break his concentration?" Bram nodded, his eyes gleaming with a fierce loyalty. "I can try, but it won't last long." "It only needs to last a heartbeat," Liam said, his gaze fixed on Seraphina. He could feel her fear, a cold tendril reaching out through their bond. But beneath it, that core of resilience, that unwavering spirit he loved so fiercely. Alara positioned herself beside Liam, her claws extended, her body coiled and ready to strike. "What's the plan, Alpha?" "We go in fast and hard. Bram creates the distraction. Alara, You target the rogues guarding her. I'm going for Kaelen. Liam's words were clipped, every muscle in his body tense with anticipation and a burning need to reach Seraphina. Bram moved swiftly, melting into the shadows of the tunnel. A moment later, a series of sharp, guttural howls echoed from the main passage, a primal challenge that would undoubtedly draw the attention of anyone guarding the entrance. Now, Liam hissed, and he and Alara burst from the alcove, shifting midair. Their wolf forms a blur of fur and fury. The main chamber erupted in chaos. The rogues, startled by Bram's sudden assault, turned their attention towards the tunnel entrance, momentarily leaving Seraphina unguarded. Alara, a whirlwind of silver fur, tore through their ranks, her snarls echoing off the stone walls. Liam, a massive black wolf, his eyes burning with alpha command, lunged towards Kaelen. The air crackled with dark energy as Kaelen continued his chanting, seemingly unfazed by the sudden intrusion. But Liam saw the flicker of surprise in his eyes, the momentary break in his concentration. It was enough. He slammed into Kaelen, the force of the impact sending the treacherous beta sprawling. The dark energy swirling around Kaelen dissipated, the chanting abruptly cut short. Seraphina gasped, her eyes widening as she saw Liam. Liam. Her voice was hoarse, but the relief in it was a balm to his ravaged soul. Kaelen, snarling, shifted into his own wolf form, a hulking brute with eyes that glowed with a malevolent light. The betrayal in his gaze was a tangible thing, a venomous hatred directed at Liam. How could you? Liam's unspoken question hung heavy in the air between them, a chasm of broken trust. The rogues, recovering from Alara's initial assault, turned their attention to Liam, their snarls filled with the savage protectiveness of their new leader. The chamber became a maelstrom of shifting fur, snapping teeth, and guttural growls. Liam fought with a ferocity born of desperation and a primal need to protect his mate. Every blow he landed on the rogues was fueled by the image of Seraphina bound and vulnerable. Every time Kaelen lunged, the memory of his betrayal sharpened Liam's defense. Seraphina, though still bound, was not passive. She strained against her restraints, her own wolf fighting to break free. The ritualistic mark on her arm pulsed, and Liam could feel a surge of her own power, however diminished, reaching out through their bond. It was a lifeline, a reminder that she was still fighting, still resisting. Kaelen, his eyes burning with a fanatical light, focused his attack on Liam, his movements fueled by a desperate ambition. She will be mine, Liam. Kaelen snarled, his voice a guttural rasp in his wolf form. Her power will be mine. You were always too weak to truly control it. Liam met his gaze, his own fury a cold, unwavering fire. She is mine, Kaelen. Always has been, always will be. And you will pay for laying a single claw on her. The battle raged, a brutal dance of power and desperation. Liam, fueled by his love for Seraphina and the bitter sting of betrayal, fought with the strength of 10. Alara, her loyalty unwavering, held back the remaining rogues, her snarls a fierce counterpoint to the chaos. And Seraphina, bound but unbroken, channeled her own power, a subtle but growing force that Liam could feel resonating through their bond, a promise of the storm yet to come. The air crackled with magic and the scent of blood and fur, the fate of their pack, their love, hanging precariously in the balance. The betrayal had opened a wound that might never fully heal, but in this moment, amidst the chaos and the fury, Liam knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would not let Kaelen win. He would fight until his last breath to protect the woman who was his heart, his soul, his Luna. The reckoning had begun. The brutal snarl that tore from Kaelen's throat as he lunged for Liam was a sound stripped bare of any semblance of the brother he once knew. Only raw, possessive fury remained, a desperate hunger for the power he believed Seraphina held, a power he now intended to claim through force. But Liam met that savage charge with a roar of his own, a primal bellow that echoed the unbreakable bond he shared with his Luna, a bond that Kaelen could never comprehend, let alone sever. The clash of their wolf forms was a brutal ballet of tooth and claw, a whirlwind of black and dark fur against the flickering torchlight of the cavern, the very stones beneath them trembling with the force of their conflict. Each blow Liam landed on Kaelen was fueled by the searing image of Seraphina bound and vulnerable, the ritualistic mark a brand of violation on her skin. The betrayal cut deep, a wound that might never fully heal, but it also sharpened his focus, honing his every instinct. This wasn't just a fight for Seraphina. It was a battle for the very soul of their pack, a stand against the insidious darkness that had taken root within their own ranks. "She is not yours to take," Liam snarled, his teeth bared, his voice a guttural pronouncement of ownership as he dodged Kaelen's vicious swipe. "You never deserved her power." Kaelen spat back, his eyes burning with a fanatical light. "It belongs to a true alpha, one strong enough to wield it." Their conflict raged, a brutal dance of dominance and desperation. Liam, though wounded, fought with the unwavering strength of his love for Seraphina, a fierce protectiveness that surged through him with every beat of his heart. Alara, a whirlwind of silver fury, held the remaining rogues at bay, her snarls a fierce counterpoint to the brutal symphony of the Alpha's battle. Through the chaos, Liam kept his gaze locked on Seraphina. She was straining against her bonds, her small whimpers of pain tearing at his soul. But even in her terror, he saw that flicker of defiance, that inner strength that had always defined her. And then, he felt it, a subtle but unmistakable pulse of energy emanating from her, a faint resonance through their bond, a fragile tendril of her own power reaching out. She's fighting, Liam realized, a surge of hope bolstering his flagging strength. Even bound, even threatened, her spirit remains unbroken. Kaelen, sensing Liam's renewed determination, pressed his attack, his movements becoming more frantic, more desperate. He knew his time was running out. "Once I claim her power, Liam, your reign will be over." Kaelen roared, lunging with a savage ferocity. "The pack will bow to a true leader." But Liam met his attack head-on, fueled by a primal rage and the unwavering strength of his connection to Seraphina. He would not let Kaelen's twisted ambition succeed. He would not let him defile their bond. With a final, desperate surge of power, Kaelen slammed into Liam, sending them both crashing against the rough stone wall. Liam gasped, pain lancing through his side. For a heart-stopping moment, darkness threatened to overwhelm him. But then he saw Seraphina. Her eyes, locked on his, were filled with a fierce love and an unwavering belief. And through their bond, he felt it, a surge of her own will, a bolstering of his strength, a silent command to fight. He pushed himself back to his feet, his body aching, but his spirit unbroken. He met Kaelen's hateful gaze with a cold fury of his own. "You will never understand the bond we share, Kaelen," Liam growled, his voice raw but firm. "It is stronger than any power you could ever steal." And then, as Kaelen lunged again, something shifted. The ritualistic mark on Seraphina's arm flared with an intense light, and a wave of raw energy pulsed outwards, washing over the cavern. Kaelen staggered back, a look of shock and pain contorting his features. The dark energy that had clung to him flickered and died. What is happening?" Kaelen gasped, his power visibly weakening. Seraphina, her eyes blazing with a newfound strength, strained against her bonds, a low growl rumbling in her chest. The energy emanating from her intensified, resonating with Liam's own power, their bond becoming a conduit for a force Kaelen had never anticipated. Liam felt a surge of his own strength, amplified by Seraphina's unexpected surge of power. He lunged at Kaelen, his attack swift and decisive, fueled by pure, unadulterated love and a burning need to end this nightmare. The force of his blow sent Kaelen crashing against the far wall, the impact knocking the breath from his lungs. Kaelen lay there, defeated, his eyes wide with disbelief and a dawning horror. The power he had so desperately sought had turned against him, a testament to the unbreakable bond he had tried to destroy. Liam turned to Seraphina, his heart aching with a mixture of relief and lingering fear. The ritualistic mark on her arm was still glowing, but the intensity had lessened. Their eyes met, and in that shared gaze, a silent understanding passed between them. They had faced the darkness, and together they had survived. But the scars of Kaelen's betrayal would remain, a stark reminder of the enemy within. The battle was won, but the healing had just begun. The silence that fell over the cavern was heavy, thick with the aftermath of the brutal conflict, the ragged breaths of the survivors the only sound. Liam took a tentative step towards Seraphina, his gaze never leaving hers, the primal fear of losing her still a tight knot in his chest. He had to reach her, had to feel her warmth, had to know she was truly safe. The air still crackled with the remnants of the unleashed power, a tangible manifestation of the extraordinary connection they shared, a connection that had ultimately turned the tide against their betrayer. Kaelen remained where he had fallen, a broken figure, his ambition shattered against the unyielding force of their love. The rogues, witnessing their leader's defeat and the raw power emanating from the bonded alphas, began to whimper and back away, their savage bravado finally extinguished. Alara stood guard, her eyes narrowed, ready to strike down any who dared to move. But the focus, the undeniable gravitational pull in the cavern, was between Liam and Seraphina, two halves of a soul reunited amidst the wreckage of betrayal. The journey back to trust would be long and arduous, but in this moment, with their eyes locked and the echoes of battle fading, a fragile dawn of hope began to break. They had faced the ultimate test, and their bond, forged in love and loyalty, had proven unbreakable. The crisis had passed, but the weight of what had been lost, the innocence shattered by Kaelen's treachery, would linger like a shadow. Yet, beneath that shadow, the resilient flame of their love burned brighter than ever before. The raw energy that had pulsed through Seraphina, a wild echo of her bond with Liam, now receded, leaving her trembling but whole. The magical restraints that had bound her fell away, clattering against the stone floor, a tangible symbol of her regained freedom. But the sight of Liam, bruised and bleeding but his gaze locked on hers with such fierce tenderness, was the truest release. Kaelen lay defeated, his ambition a smoldering ruin, the dark magic that had clung to him now dissipated like a nightmare at dawn. The rogues, their bravado extinguished, huddled in the shadows, their fear a palpable presence in the cavern. But for Seraphina, the world had narrowed to the space between herself and Liam, an invisible thread of love drawing them together amidst the wreckage of betrayal. The silence that had fallen was heavy, charged with unspoken emotions, the weight of what they had endured, the fragile dawn of their reunion. Liam moved towards her, his gait unsteady but his eyes never leaving hers, each step a silent testament to his unwavering determination. When he reached her, he didn't speak, didn't rush. He simply cupped her face in his hands, his touch gentle despite the lingering tremor in his fingers. His thumbs traced the line of her jaw, his gaze searching hers, as if to reassure himself that she was truly there, truly safe. "Seraphina," he finally whispered, his voice rough with emotion, the sound a balm to her ravaged soul. "Liam," she breathed in reply, her own voice trembling, tears welling in her eyes, tears of relief, of love, of the raw, visceral joy of seeing him again. She reached up, her hands covering his, her fingers lacing with his. His skin was warm, solid, real. He was here. He had found her. Are you all right?" he asked, his brow furrowed with concern, his gaze scanning her face for any sign of injury. "I'm here," she managed, a small, shaky smile gracing her lips. "You came. Always," he vowed, his voice thick with emotion, his grip tightening on her hands. "Always, Seraphina." The weight of everything they had endured pressed down on them, the unspoken horrors of her captivity, the bitter sting of Kaelen's betrayal. But in that moment, held in Liam's gaze, none of it mattered. Only their reunion, the fierce, undeniable love that had pulled them back from the brink. Alara approached cautiously, her expression a mixture of relief and lingering anger as she glanced at the defeated Kaelen. "What do we do with him, Alpha?" she asked, her voice low and dangerous. Liam's gaze flickered to Kaelen, a shadow of pain crossing his features. The betrayal of someone he had considered a brother, it was a wound that would take time to heal. "He will face the pack," Liam said, his voice firm, the Alpha authority returning. "His treachery will not go unpunished." Bram nodded in agreement, his own disappointment evident in his grim expression. "The rogues will answer for their part in this as well." But Seraphina's gaze remained locked on Liam. There were so many things left unsaid, so many shadows of fear and pain that still lingered between them. "Liam," she began, her voice barely a whisper, her fingers tightening on his. "Kaelen, he knew about my lineage. The old blood." Liam's eyes darkened, a flicker of understanding crossing his features. "The reason he took you." Seraphina nodded, a shiver running down her spine as she recalled Kaelen's cold, calculating gaze, the way he had spoken of her power. "He wanted to use it," she explained, her voice trembling slightly. "For his own gain. To control the pack." The revelation hung heavy in the air, a chilling reminder of the depth of Kaelen's ambition and the danger Seraphina had been in. Liam's grip on her hands tightened, his eyes filled with a fierce protectiveness. "He will never touch you again, Seraphina. I swear it." The journey back to their den was silent, the weight of their ordeal pressing down on them. The pack greeted their Luna's return with a mixture of joyous relief and stunned disbelief at the news of Kaelen's betrayal. The healing process had begun, but the scars of the past few days would undoubtedly linger. Later, nestled in their sleeping chamber, the familiar comfort of Liam's presence a soothing balm to her frayed nerves, Seraphina finally spoke of the fear that had haunted her captivity, the chilling realization of Kaelen's deception. "I kept thinking, how could I have been so blind?" she confessed, her voice barely a whisper in the darkness. "He was always there, always so supportive." Liam held her close, his arms a protective embrace. "He was a master of deception, Seraphina. You trusted him because I trusted him. It's not your fault." But the question lingered between them, unspoken but heavy. Could they ever truly trust again? The betrayal had sown seeds of doubt, a subtle poison that would take time and unwavering love to overcome. As the days turned into nights, they began the slow process of healing, both individually and as a pack. Kaelen faced the judgment of their people, his treachery met with a profound sense of loss and anger. The rogues were dealt with, their threat neutralized. But the internal wounds, those would take longer to mend. One evening, under the soft glow of the full moon, Liam and Seraphina found themselves in their secret meadow, the place where their love had first truly blossomed. The scent of lavender and wild honey filled the air, a familiar comfort. "It feels different here now," Seraphina murmured, her gaze sweeping the tranquil space. Liam took her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "We've both changed, Seraphina. We've faced darkness, and we've emerged stronger. Our bond, it's been tested, but it hasn't broken." He turned to her, his eyes filled with a love that had deepened and intensified through their ordeal. "There will be scars, Luna, but they will be a reminder of what we've overcome, of the strength of what we share." Seraphina reached up, her fingers tracing the line of his jaw, her heart overflowing with a love that had defied betrayal and conquered fear. "We will heal, Liam. Together. Our bond, it is unbreakable." The silence that followed was filled with a quiet understanding, a renewed commitment to one another, a silent promise of a future built on honesty, trust, and an even deeper, more profound love. The scars remained, a testament to the pain they had endured, but they were also a reminder of the extraordinary strength of their connection, a bond forged in fire and destined to endure. The happily ever after they had always dreamed of now felt hard-earned, precious, and infinitely more meaningful. The weight of the unspoken hung between them, the fragile trust needing time and tenderness to fully mend. The gentle caress of the moonlight filtering through the leaves of their secret meadow painted silver streaks across Seraphina's hair as she leaned against Liam, the familiar rhythm of his heartbeat a soothing counterpoint to the lingering echoes of their ordeal. The scars remained, a delicate tracery beneath the surface of their skin, a shared history etched onto their souls. But they were no longer wounds. They were testaments to the fierce love that had weathered the storm of betrayal, a love that now burned brighter and deeper than ever before. The pack, too, was slowly mending, the shadow of Kaelen's treachery receding with each passing day, replaced by a renewed sense of unity and a deeper appreciation for the bonds that held them together. Liam tightened his arm around Seraphina, the scent of lavender and wild honey, once a phantom ache, now a comforting balm that filled his senses. He looked down at her, her gaze serene, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the moon. The fear that had gripped him during her absence now felt like a distant nightmare, a stark reminder of the preciousness of what he had almost lost. "It feels right again," Seraphina murmured, her voice soft, her hand finding his. Liam brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek, his touch lingering. "More than right. It feels like coming home, Luna." A small smile touched her lips. "We both did." The silence that followed was comfortable, filled with the unspoken language of two souls intertwined. The air hummed with the quiet magic of their connection, a bond forged in love and strengthened by adversity. "Do you ever think about what might have happened?" Seraphina asked softly, her gaze drifting towards the trees. Liam's arm tightened protectively around her. "Sometimes, but I refuse to dwell on the what-ifs, Seraphina. All that matters is that you're here. We're together." "Kaelen," she began, a shadow briefly crossing her features. "He's gone," Liam said firmly, cutting off the painful memory. "His betrayal is a chapter closed. Our future, that's what we need to focus on now." He turned her to face him, his hands cupping her cheeks, his gaze filled with a love that transcended words. "And our future, Seraphina, is filled with you. Always." A warmth bloomed in her eyes, chasing away the lingering shadows. "And with you, Liam. Always." The days that followed were filled with a quiet joy, a rediscovery of the simple pleasures they had once taken for granted. Walks through the forest, the easy companionship of their pack, the shared laughter that echoed through their den once more. The pack, witnessing their Alpha and Luna's unwavering love, began to heal, the bonds of trust slowly but surely reforging. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, Liam found Seraphina watching the pups play, a soft smile on her face. "They remind me of us, sometimes," she said, turning as he approached. "So full of energy and a little bit wild." Liam chuckled, stepping beside her, his arm around her shoulders. "They have a good Luna to guide them." Seraphina leaned into him, her head resting against his chest. "And a strong Alpha to protect them." The silence that followed was filled with a comfortable understanding, a shared vision of the future they were building together, a future filled with love, laughter, and the comforting presence of their pack. Weeks later, under the silvery glow of the full moon, Liam led Seraphina back to their secret meadow. He had something to show her. In the center of the clearing, bathed in moonlight, stood a newly carved wooden bird, larger than the first, its wings outstretched in flight. "I finished it," Liam said softly, his gaze filled with love. "A symbol of our resilience, Seraphina, and our freedom." Tears welled in Seraphina's eyes as she reached out, her fingers tracing the delicate carvings. "It's beautiful, Liam." He took her hand, his gaze earnest. "Just like you, Luna." He knelt before her, taking both her hands in his. "Seraphina, you are the heart of my soul, the fire in my blood, the very air I breathe. Will you continue to be my Luna, my partner, my everything, for all the days to come?" Tears streamed down Seraphina's face, but her smile was radiant. "Yes, Liam. 1,000 times yes." He rose, pulling her into his arms, their embrace filled with a love that had been tested and had emerged stronger than ever. Under the watchful gaze of the moon, their wolves nudged against them, a silent blessing on their enduring bond. The pain of the past had faded, replaced by the unwavering certainty of their future, a future built on the solid foundation of their love, a love that had conquered betrayal and blossomed anew. Their happily ever after had arrived, not as a fairy tale ending, but as a testament to their strength, their resilience, and the unbreakable bond that connected their hearts and souls. The scent of lavender and wild honey filled the air, no longer a phantom ache, but the sweet, comforting aroma of a love that would last a lifetime.